Vinland Saga is a new anime based on the book series written and illustrated by Makoto Yukimura. Though fictional and based in Viking mythology, Vinland Saga is praised for its historically accurate setting. The show takes place in 1013 AD as the Saxon king Sweyn, ruler of England and Denmark, wages war with the Icelandic Vikings. The protagonist of this story is Thorfinn, displayed in this image. However, I will focus on two other characters who have strong ties to the Arthurian legend. The first of these characters is a Welsh pirate called Astolat. This man is a rather complicated character, as he both qualifies as a protagonist and an antagonist. His ability in combat and intelligent strategy allow him to be an inspiring leader, a fearsome raider, and a sly politician. The second of these two characters is the son of King Sweyn. Canute, Prince of England and Denmark, is a devout and wise young leader. Though he recognizes the tyranny of his father's rule, Canute preaches that violence is not the answer. Thus, he seeks to earn the throne from his older brother in order to unite the English Empire. We are introduced to Astolat very early on in the series, when Thorfinn, then 7 years old, stows away on his father's warship bound for England. Astolat and his pirates ambush the warship in order to fulfill an assassination contract on Thorfinn's father. Despite his father's effortless victory over the pirates, one of the enemies takes Thorfinn hostage, and his father surrenders to Astolat's blade. Astolat is consequently introduced as both a cunning strategist and a man without honor. Thorfinn is thereafter adopted and trained by Astolat, though only to satisfy Thorfinn's desire to periodically duel Astolat in an attempt to avenge his father. Alternatively, Prince Canute is introduced as a harbinger of peace. Astolat and Thorfinn encounter Canute on his pilgrimage from Denmark to England in order to confront his father, King Sweyn. Despite traveling with his small army, Canute only does so to defend himself and the citizens who are being raided by Viking pirates. He is timid yet determined, and rests at nothing until he may attend his father's court to persuade him to establish an era of peace. Having allegiance to nothing but gold, Astolat turns his coat and offers himself and his crew as bodyguards for the prince, as many Danish soldiers were killed in a Viking ambush. Canute accepts Astolat's proposal, and the group travels together to England. Now that I've established essential character relationships, we can begin to analyze the Arthurian qualities of these two men. I chose to analyze this show in particular because the characteristics of King Arthur seem to be interestingly divided between these two people. Whereas Astolat is a fierce, commanding, and strategic fighter, Canute is an honorable, passionate, and devout leader. As the narrative unfolds, these characters' qualities work in unison to bring down the tyrannical rule of King Sweyn and establish peace under a new rule. There are many instances wherein Canute and Astolat's behavior and beliefs are juxtaposed. Through this, the aspects of Arthurian honor and virtues seem to be divided into two perspectives. Whereas Astolat finds triumph in the death of his enemies, Canute recognizes that one can be defeated without dying. For example, in the final duel between Thorfinn and Astolat, Canute stands sentry, prepared to end the fight as soon as he deems its victor. Canute commands that he will call the fight before anybody dies, and Astolat reluctantly, though understandably, agrees. This dichotomy is what creates a glorious leader. A great king is powerful but not relentless, dangerous but not a villain. It is the embodiment of these qualities that brought King Arthur to rule in his youth. Following the duel, Askeladd meets with Thorfinn to tell him of his childhood. Askeladd talks of the stories that his mother would tell him when he was young. Namely, she would tell Askeladd of his heroic ancestor named Artorius. Artorius was a Roman general who ruled over England back when it was called Britannia, Askeladd explains. Artorius had defended their home from invasion 500 years prior. Given the identity of his ancestor, the time he lived, and his feats, it can be said with near certainty that Askeladd's ancestor is indeed King Arthur. Askeladd explains that his mother always preached that Artorius would return, though he lost hope when his mother succumbed to illness during her time as a slave. "We waited 500 years and no hero ever came to save us," says Askeladd. "Now the deed has fallen on tired men like me." The combined strengths of Canute and Askeladd allow them to lead with tenacity, strength, honor, and mercy. These are the same virtues embodied by King Arthur in all of his endeavors. It is also worth noting that Canute and Askeladd have formed this alliance in their quest to stop tyrannical Saxon rule, parallel to Arthur's quest 500 years prior to prevent Saxon rule itself. I believe that these are the heroes that Arthurian resurrection prophecies have foretold. Vinland Saga's finale emphasizes all of these points. Following their arrival to King Sweyn's court, they sit at the feast and watch as King Sweyn pays his bannermen their dues. Canute stands with the royal guards on the king's platform, as Askeladd sits at the banquet, growing angry at the amount of wealth being wasted on war. King Sweyn summons Askeladd to the front of the hall and offers him his payment for guarding Prince Canute. Sweyn whispers to Askeladd, demanding that he either accepts exile to Wales or that he kills the prince. In return, the king will free Wales and establish him as King Sweyn's disciple. Enraged, Askeladd glances to Canute, who is unaware of what his father had just said, and draws his sword. Askeladd looks back to King Sweyn, calling out, "Call me by my name. I am Lucius Artorius Castus. I will not let a crown sit on an undeserving head." Askeladd swiftly executes the king in front of the entire court. Here we discover that the man known as Askeladd is the namesake of the real-life Roman general who some believe to be the historical basis for King Arthur. Canute is furious. Pointing at his friend Askeladd, Canute rallies the guards to kill him. Askeladd proceeds to go on a lengthy last stand, killing countless guards. Meanwhile, Canute encourages the terrified people to continue the fight and not to run away. When the last of the guards have fallen, it is Prince Canute who sinks his blade into Askeladd's heart. Not only is this his first kill, but this is the first time that he has wielded a weapon. "You did well," Askeladd says, before falling to the ground dead. Canute retrieves the crown and anoints himself King of England, going on to guide his people to an era of peace and prosperity. When I began drafting my thesis for this project, I intended to analyze two characters and decide who exactly was the embodiment of King Arthur. After reading into the story, however, I now interpret Arthur's virtues to be divided among these two characters. Seemingly, it is as if their alliance is the reincarnate of King Arthur. Without Askeladd's strength and cunning, King Sweyn would not have fallen. Without Canute's righteousness and impartiality, England would have fallen into anarchy. Without the combination of the two, England would remain under King Sweyn's tyranny. The combined actions of these men upheld the Arthurian virtues of passion, prowess, and mercy as they save England from the tyranny of its king.